Hello and welcome again to the Writer Review. This is Eric Carruth Writer, and this week we're going to be taking a look back at the 2020 sci-fi horror psychological thriller titled Possessor. Now, Possessor runs for 1 hour and 44 minutes long. It is written and directed by Brandon Cronenberg. For all those who don't know who Brandon Cronenberg is, well, of course, he is the son of legendary film director David Cronenberg. Yes, the Cronenberg genes is the apple on the trees, in the same spot? Well, sort of. But I guess the younger Cronenberg seems to actually may have a little more different interpretations of how he makes his films. And I guess in some ways, in the end, when you think about it, no matter what bloodline you're in, everyone's still different. The movie was produced by Fraser Ash, Niv Fitchman, Kevin Kirkst, and Andrew Starkey. It was composed by Jim Williams, the cinematography by Karim Hussein, and it was edited by Matthew Hannum. And the stars of the movie are Andrea Riseborough, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Christopher Abbott, Sean Bean, Rossif Sutherland, Tuppance Middleton, one of our own local actors from Ganawage. I'm talking about Kaniehtiio Horn. We also have Raoul Bhaneja, Gage Graham-Arbuthnot, Rachel Crawford, Hrant, Alianak, and Gabriel Graham. What did I think of this movie? I thought that this movie really, really, truly rocked. I really gotta say, hats off to Brandon Cronenberg for making this really, really good movie. His father, David, should be really proud of him. I mean, I really actually also eagerly anticipate as to what movie he's going to do next after seeing this movie. This movie, actually, I have to say, was easily one of the more scarier, intense, bloodier movies that I have seen in a long, long time. Now, that does not necessarily mean that I'm some kind of fucking sadist who yearns upon watching people die and stuff like that, or has a liking for carnage and guts. No, I just like to watch movies to suspend my disbelief, to enjoy, for entertainment. In fact, as long as a character, an actor, or an actress does not really die in real life, then and they come back again for another movie, would depend, regardless of what genre they're in or regardless of who they're directing, as long as they collect their paychecks and move forward to another project or move forward to another movie, as long as nobody in real life as long as no one comes out harmed or hurt or worst case scenario, death, I am okay with this. Okay, I know the differences between reality from fiction. So, I'm not a sadist. In real life, I would not like to see somebody get hurt or injured or even looking at death right in my eyes. But at the same time, these are just movies. They're just for entertainment purposes. And if it's there to give me a lasting impression, then this movie has done its justice. And I think Brandon Cronenberg truly did that. Horror film director David Cronenberg has had a career that spanned several decades and has created a myriad of masterpieces that are still admired throughout the years. From the creative works like Scanners, The Brood, and Dead Ringers, his artistic integrity was added to give his horror films a stylized film with as much surrealism to keep his fan base satisfied. I really gotta gotta give a hats off to David Cronenberg for entertaining us over the years. You know, he is truly one of the great horror film directors, very underrated compared to such likes like Wes Craven and John Carpenter. Cronenberg is pretty much up there. I mean, he likes to use horror film elements with a more psychological thriller type of thing. Very similar veins to like Alfred Hitchcock. And David Cronenberg is still active in the filming community, but he has not directed as much. Okay, understandable. I mean, he is getting on in age. He's 79 years old. So I know he's probably not out and about as much as he used to. But his knowledge and wisdom has been passed down to his son Brandon, who has learned the basics from his father through the use of complex storytelling. That's one of the things about the Cronenbergs. Just like David, Brandon uses complex storytelling to add to his horror elements. But it's still very original in idea and body horror like we've seen in his previous movie, Antiviral. We now see it in Possessor. So, Brandon really did learn a lot from his father in the art of directing stylized horror films with storytelling that is complex and provocative. So, Andrea Riseborough is the star in this movie. She is a top assassin by the name of Tasia Voss, who works for a secret organization through the use of brain implants to get into other people's bodies in order to kill clients willing to get some payoff afterwards. Andrea Riseborough was just really, really awesome in her performance. I really enjoyed her role. She is, of course, a person who's dedicated to her job, dedicated to the organization who she works for, which could be both an asset and a liability, which I'll explain a bit. Tasia has been doing most of the body possessions, and lately it has actually taken a toll on her psychologically and has kind of left her very scarred and somewhat maybe a bit disheveled, both physically and psychologically, mostly psychologically, almost to the point where she's not really able to adjust to normal life settings. Because in her organization that she has worked for, she has not lived a normal life. And she finds it very taxing when she tries to interact with her husband Michael, played by Rossif Sutherland, and her son Ira, played by Gage Graham-Arbuthnot. So after you see the cold opening where some young lady played by Gabriel Graham, she walks into a bar. She meets up with a lawyer. She gets a little seductive with him. And then, from out of nowhere, she stabs him multiple times with a knife. Even though it's not actually her doing it to him, she's being possessed by some other embodiment inside of her that's doing it, not actually out of her own personal cognitive. It's like, okay, in the physical sense, she's doing it, but through her mind, she's not doing it because she is being manipulated by somebody, by Tasia, whose spirit has gone inside of her, causing her to do these things. And then when she gets apprehended by the police, She pulls a gun and kills herself. And apparently Tasia's, I guess, inner spirit or inner conscious comes out of her. But then, of course, she realizes that her personal, I guess you could say, she started to become a bit overwhelmed and maybe even starting to become a bit sloppy in her work. So then, I believe her name is Gerder, Miss Gerder, Jennifer Jason Leigh's character. She's giving her some kind of a psychological test to show her some possessions, just to make sure she's like intact and not, off the wall or something like that. She shows her some props on the table. One of them included a butterfly that she squashed once. And then when she said that she regretted it, she ended up, her boss, her superior, played by Jennifer Jason Leigh, tells her that she should just take a break, step down from her position, and just try to live a normal, civilized life for a bit. She tries to do it, but she finds it very taxing, especially with her husband Michael, played by Rossif Sutherland, and her son Ira, played by Gage Graham-Arbuthnot. And we could actually clearly tell that she's not really well connected with him. She's not well connected with her husband. She's not very well connected with her son. And apparently, but because she seems that she's more in love with her work than with her family, she decides, nope, I can't do this. I just prefer my work over my family because I really can't interact very well with them. That's the impression that I get. So, as you would expect from a Cronenberg film, be it David or Brandon, daring and thrilling scenes that go beyond limitations in terms of gore, violence, and stunning special effects. I like how the special effects are more authentic because they're not too overly dependent on CGI. There is some CGI stuff because most of the work that you see in this organization is basically technologically sufficient. She's an assassin, but not in the physical sense, but more or less in a spiritual sense. She's hooked to some machines and some wires, and she just gets herself in. She gets her spirit sent into the bodies of random people to do her dirty work, and then they end up suffering their own fates after. So there's really no happy disclosures in them. The movie is definitely highly excessive in gore and violence, and it is pretty bad. Some of the death scenes in this movie will really make your blood boil. But the effects are in sync with the lighting as well as the colorful cinematography to give it a more experimental viewpoint to see how far the imagination can really take us. And here, the younger Cronenberg really shows that. The acting is just the right combination that complements the visuals. I thought the performances were really good, no matter how limited they are. Jennifer Jason Leigh, she's been around a long time. She really truly delivers. Andrea Riseborough shows that she's really good in her performances. I mean, I'm not going to say it's like cinematic masterpiece the performances are, but because there's really not too much heavy dialogue. There's definitely more action than words in this movie, and I guess you could say even reactions. Now, although this movie is built as a horror film because it is kind of in somewhat scary, but not scary in the paranormal sense, but more close to the Alfred Hitchcockian type of psychological thriller. The visuals were definitely really well executed. It wasn't over the top. And it kind of had a bit of that old school feel of horror films, but not in the sense like those 80s slasher stuff, because this movie has more complex storytelling and is not as simplistic as those horror films that you saw in the 80s and 90s. But one of the things I liked about the movie is that the plot is about as original as they come, as the viewers eagerly anticipate as what will happen next. I liked that she was put on another assignment, and she got into the body of a character played by Christopher Abbott, who eventually does some rather uncompromising things to people, especially with Sean Bean's character, who was just a total jerk, deserved what he got. But I don't think he deserved to go to the extremities that he put himself through. No, I would have preferred a little comeuppance. Sure, that's fine, that's great, that's awesome. But at the same time, it was freaking scary and quite over the top. I mean, he just definitely got his. He just definitely. It was a brutal, sickening death scene, and probably maybe one of the best ones in this movie. Oh, that's what I call real awesome shit, and it was awesome. Ah, there were quite a lot of death scenes in this movie, but I think Sean Bean's was the one that really takes the cake. Now, a lot of horror and slasher films that we are become familiar with, many of them seem to run at a very quick pace. This movie, if you're expecting a fast-paced slasher film with a lot of deaths and bodies flying all over the place, you might be a bit disappointed. Sure, there are deaths in this movie. Sure, it's violent and gory, but it's not going to run at a rabbit's pace, but more at a snail's pace. But each scene is directed smoothly and methodically that it doesn't meander or catch us off guard. Sure, some parts could have been fragmented a bit and some character development would have helped fleshed out, like who some of these people are and what causes them to commit these unorthodox deeds. Hell, even the main character herself, like, why is she even in this organization? What's her motive? What's her purpose? We don't find that here. I'm sorry to say. We don't. I would have liked to know more about her. But I don't. Not understanding the purpose behind their motives is the principal flaw of Possessor. Sure, Tasia Voss is the character we follow through most of the way, but there are still a myriad of things we still don't know about her. We see that she's the go-to person in her profession, and that the dedication she puts into her work is overwhelming her to the point where she can't function properly. And even when she has time off, it's very brief, and she's back on the job again, and still with nothing fully explained. Why does she choose her career over her family? I guess because she can't connect. Understandable. She goes through these virtual reality type situations. There's no purpose or explanation as to why she wants to go after the Sean Bean character, or it's very, very hard to explain because it's very, very thinly fleshed out. So we're completely clueless. I think the movie's set one was just to create a reaction or some level of intrigue in terms of action, but not really strong in storytelling. We need to know more about why she's doing this. What caused her to join this organization? Why is she so disconnected with her family? That's kind of like, it might be that she chooses work over home because her home life is not something she's happy with, especially since she can't communicate normally with her husband and son. Therefore, work is her comfort zone, and it's really all she has, honestly. It's where she can vent out her inner frustrations, but it's just an impression I get, so the facts are not fully concrete. And this is where the weakness goes. We don't know why she targets certain individuals, or what was the technological stuff that could get her into the body of others to do her dirty work. I mean, why can't she just go out and do her own dirty work? Oh, I know, because she's afraid she'll get caught and arrested, or even worst case scenario, put to death. So this is kind of like where the big weakness is. So overall, Possessor is one of the more compelling films that came out during the pandemic era, and it is pleasing that the Cronenberg legacy lives on in the horror film community. The visuals and special effects are truly breathtaking. The plot is complex and never once does it insult your intelligence. The weaknesses are mostly due to the underwhelming character development and what makes them tick, but it always remains intense and atmospheric. So Possessor will surely see various opinions in the end, where there's no right or wrong answers. Just pretty much choose yourself and what and how you interpret things, you know. I do highly recommend you to see this movie because it's just, very violent, very gory. If you're into that kind of stuff, I could stomach or sit through it. But, I wouldn't recommend you to bring your small kids to see this. I mean, what kind of sick freaks are you if you do something like that? But, other than that, I think it's an enjoyable popcorn movie to watch at night. I would rather prefer at night than during the day because it just makes things a lot more interesting now, does it? So, when all is said and done, if I was to give this movie a scale out of 10, I would give Possessor from 2020 an 8 out of 10. So I guess this ends my writer review. Thank you all for listening in. If you wish to subscribe to my YouTube channel, please feel free to do so. If you wish to leave a comment, go right ahead. But just remember the 3 simple rules: be kind, be courteous, and please refrain from any rude comments. And I will be back again with another movie review. So until next time, this is Eric Carrot Writer saying, keep watching those movies, and I'll see you around. Goodbye.